What's up, everybody? Look, one of the most common questions that I get, or one of the most common topics that we hear about in the muscle building community is, what's the best routine to build muscle? Now, if you look at the most common routines that you find in gyms or the ones that bodybuilders tend to promote, the routines are typically called body part split routines. Now, on my podcast, Mind Pump, we talk about why body part split routines are not very effective for most people. Now, I'm going to get into why that is. Now, it's not necessarily the body part split routine that's ineffective. It's the way that they're programmed. So before I get into that, let's talk history a little bit, or at least muscle building history. Now, body part split routines weren't really popular for quite a long time. They weren't popular until the 70s, right around Arnold's era. And that's when bodybuilders started to break the body up into individual body parts and train, 2 or 3 body parts in a day to allow them to train with more volume so that they weren't in the gym for, 2 or 3 hours at a time. Prior to that, all bodybuilders did these kind of full body routines where they would train the whole body about 3 or 4 days a week. Now, here's what we know. Here's what the science shows, and here's why the typical body part routines are so terrible. Science shows us, and the research shows us, that to train a body part most effectively, you want to hit it a few times a week, at least twice a week. When you train a body part, you're sending a signal for that muscle to adapt, to build. That adaptation signal can be roughly measured through something called muscle protein synthesis. And that signal stays elevated for about 48 to 72 hours, after which case it starts to drop. Now, most body part split routines will have you training a body part once a week. So like a typical routine would be something like chest on Monday, back on Tuesday, shoulders on Wednesday, biceps and triceps on Thursday, and legs on Friday, or something like that. So you end up really only training your body parts once a week. Now, this works okay if you also have a loud muscle building signal from hormones like testosterone or anabolic steroids. But for most natural people, the anabolic signal starts to fade pretty quickly, and then you've got like 3 or 4 days before you hit that body part again, which is why people tend to plateau so hard on body part split routines, or at least the ones that I'm talking about. So that's a big problem. Here's another problem. There's a lot of exercises that you can do for each body part. I mean, I could easily name 50 chest exercises or 50 leg exercises, but they're not all created equal. Some of them are far more effective than others. For example, when we're talking about the legs, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with me in saying that barbell squats are going to add more muscle and give you more strength gains and give you a faster metabolism boost than, say, leg extensions. Leg extensions is a single joint exercise. Barbell squats, a compound movement using multiple joints, requires a lot more balance. You move a lot more weight, and it's just far more effective. Now, if I'm training a muscle once a week, like let's say today's leg day, and I'm doing 15 to 25 sets, which is the typical set range that people aim for, that means I'm doing, 4 to 6 different exercises. Now, if I throw in barbell squats and leg presses first, which is what you probably should do because those are the most effective ones, by the time I get to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th exercise, I'm pretty much spent, I'm wasted. And so now I start doing these finishing movements, leg extensions and leg curls and isolation type exercises, which do have some value, but don't really give you the same amount of value as those bigger gross motor movements. And so a lot of the sets that you end up doing in that once a week per body part workout end up being these kind of wasteful sets in comparison. Now, if we were to divide those sets up throughout the week, you may find that you could barbell squat more than once a week. So instead of doing squats 1 time during the week, because you're hitting your legs twice a week or 3 times a week, now I'm doing the barbell squats more frequently. And that typically results in more strength and muscle gains. Here's the other problem. When people train a body part once a week on a typical body part split, they typically overdo intensity because they're only going to hit it once a week. If I know today's Monday and it's chest day, and I'm not going to hit chest till next Monday, I'm probably going to want to go to failure and beyond on a lot of my sets. Now, here's what the science says. Failure is not necessary to elicit changes in muscle, and in fact may actually just impede upon your body's ability to adapt, because there are some limiting factors. We want to send that muscle building signal, but then we're kind of limited by our body's ability to adapt and recover. And failure tends to cause more of a problem than not. Now, I'm not saying don't ever train to failure, but for the most part, training to failure is just too much intensity. But if you train your body parts, once a week with a split, you tend to get carried away because you're not going to hit it again, for 7 more days. Finally, the final problem I see with the typical bodybuilding body part splits is that they don't use periodization, or they don't phase the workouts. Now, you would be hard pressed to find a performance-based resistance training routine, one for, let's say, Olympic lifters or power lifters or any other strength athlete, that isn't periodized. Now, they use different forms of periodization. Maybe they change the rep ranges or the percentages of their max, or they change the tempo, but they all use some form of periodization. Now, bodybuilders tend to not do this. Now, why is that? Well, bodybuilders typically aren't concerned with performance as much as they are with aesthetics. Now, the problem with that is there's a lot of factors that influence my aesthetics. I can literally change my water intake or my carb intake, have a workout, and look like I've built more muscle, but I really didn't. I'm just more hydrated, or maybe I have more glycogen in my muscles. Performance-based athletes, they can do that as well with food, but to kind of a smaller degree. Really, they're looking for performance gains, and they know that periodization makes a big difference. Now, here's the kicker. It makes a big difference for muscle gains as well. And body part split routines typically don't phase. It's typically kind of this linear thing where you're training in your hypertrophy rep range of 8 to 12. Sets really don't change that much. I may change the exercises, but it's kind of the same all the time. And so your body responds, but then you plateau hard. And you may actually be stuck in this right now where you're hitting your body parts real hard, you're doing your typical body part split, but you haven't progressed in strength or muscle for a long time, or the progress is super, super painfully slow to where you're not even sure if it's working at all. So here's the deal. For most people, we've recommended full body routines over body part splits, but it's not because the body part splits themselves, or splitting up the body into body parts and training them, is necessarily worse. It's just because of those factors that I just covered earlier in this video. So what are some of the benefits of body part splits? Well, if I do break up my body parts, I can hit them with more volume, and I can focus on different exercises that may have other value. For example, cable exercises, machine exercises, focusing on the stretch or the squeeze. If I have more volume in a workout, it kind of gives me that freedom to do those types of things. But I still want to train my body parts more frequently than once a week. I still want to manage my intensity properly. I still want to periodize my routine. So yes, you can split up the body, and it can work for a lot of you, but you still want to keep in mind those factors that I just covered. So if you do those things and you split up the body, then you'll start to see your body progress. Now, body part splits typically work better for people who are very advanced. So if you have really good recovery, and if you've been working out for a long period of time, then you may see some benefit in a body part split. But again, it has to be programmed properly, especially if you're a natural athlete. Now, I'm not saying that steroided athletes or athletes that are enhanced with hormones need to train differently. I'm just saying that they tend to progress in spite of their terrible programming, because again, they have this loud testosterone signal. They would also benefit from having excellent exercise programming. Now, here at Mind Pump, we create programs, and all the programs we've created up until this point have been full body based with other kind of frequency builder type workouts within them. For example, MAPS Anabolic has trigger sessions, and MAPS Aesthetic has focus sessions. But we get a lot of people who've been messaging us saying, hey, we like splitting up the body. Can you guys write a split routine for us that you think will work well, that's expertly programmed? So that's exactly what we did. We wrote MAPS Split. It's programmed expertly. It takes advantage of periodization, or what we call phasing. It understands training the body a little bit more frequently, understands correct programming. It understands how to manipulate intensity properly. If you want more information, or if you're just interested in that program, you can go to mapssplit.com. That's 2 S's in the middle, MAPSSPLIT.com, and use the code YouTube Split. It's a special code just for YouTube viewers that's going to give you $50 off. Look, if you like this video, share this video with friends, especially friends who may be plateauing with the routines or people who are super dogmatic about split routines and don't want to try training with more frequency or phasing their routines. Maybe this will change their mind and get their bodies to progress again. Also, if you have any questions, put it in the comments below. I'm going to be visiting periodically to answer your questions. And finally, subscribe to this channel so that you can get notifications when we post new videos.